Welcome to my voiceover world.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Thanks for willing to do this, Gavin.
Sure thing. What do you want me to call you? Sebastian or Sebas or
Everybody calls me by Sibs or Sebas, but yeah, either way or so. But
cool.
Sibs is actually much awesomer, by the way, since a certain
Sibs works.
someone once told me that.
I guess so. Yeah. I guess it is kind of much more awesome. How are you?
Awesome, actually.
Fantastic.
You know, I've been wanting to say this to you, but I've been getting to know so much about you because of the game Sonic and the Black Knight.
Oh, wow. Really?
Since Sonic has been part of my childhood.
Oh,
And,
right
be
on.
and because of that, I'm beginning to learn about you and your voice acting career right there. Through many
Cool.
characters, I'm beginning to learn about you. To be honest, I never knew about the voice acting stuff until the day I discovered the show One Punch Man, the
Oh, yeah,
anime.
yeah.
And that show is the reason why I've discovered that and lots of voice actors, including you.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I never really discovered like voice acting was a thing, and I watched tons of cartoons as a kid, but it never occurred to me that people actually did that until I was like almost 30 years old and like was listening. My dad told me to listen to the radio because there was a lady with a voiceover school in Sausalito, California, which is, somewhat near to where I live. And never occurred to me that that was something that people did. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I feel like I was kind of born to do this sort of stuff. And then I just took classes, but it never really occurred to me prior to that that it was an option, for people.
I see. Well, that's good to hear from you. Now, without further ado, I got many questions I wanted to ask you
Fantastic.
about you being part of many projects that you've been part of for years. How does it feel about being in so many different projects that is yet to come, or whatever by all means?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I take a lot of personal pride in being able to do lots of different kinds of work. The things that show up like on my IMDb, for example, is maybe like, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20% tops of just kind of like all of the other stuff that I get to do because I get to do like corporate videos and commercials and like interactive toys and like promos and narrations and stuff sometimes as well. So none of that, and no one cares about any of that sort of stuff. It never shows up on IMDb. But I just feel really fortunate to get to do it. And I feel pretty good about being able to do lots of different kinds of things. But no, it's really cool, like having projects that are coming, that I can't talk about that I've worked on that, and there's this weird limbo in voiceover where it's like they might replace me and I wouldn't know. It's like I might have a session for something and then like not hear anything about it for 2 years and then it just appears someday. Or they email you and they're like, it's coming out. Tell everybody. But a lot of times it's like you never hear. And so it's like, I don't know, maybe they recast me and I'm not in this thing anymore. That's generally my attitude is that I'm not in it anymore. But that's just my own my
I
own sort of
see.
temperament.
I see that. Which leads me to the most important question right there. So, what is it that led you to pursue voice acting, and what is the best decision so far that has excelled into your voice acting career? For what purpose?
Wow. So the thing that really kind of, got me to do it was that phone call. It was like I was working in construction. I'm also a drummer and I play in bands and stuff like that. And I was like in between touring the main band that I was playing and recording with Dance Hall Crashers, who have shows coming up in a few months this summer and stuff like that. But we haven't played together in 20 years. But when we stopped touring, I would do whatever kind of jobs I could get. I worked at a comic book store, I worked at coffee shops, just kind of depends on what came up. I did linguistic transcription because I was studying linguistics in college. But I was working in construction and my dad called me and was like, "Hey, there's this lady with a voiceover school and you should listen to it." I didn't realize that like my whole life I'd been doing voices and accents and like not imitations, but just like trying to get close to voices, things like that. I didn't like do impressions, but was always interested in how people talked. I thought it was really kind of cool and it was fun to sort of mimic and, try to emulate what they were doing. And when I, started taking classes, I was like, oh yeah, I really feel like I could do this. This could be like, a different career for me. It's something I could do that wasn't like part of a group, but something I would be doing on my own independently, which was appealing because I'd been in bands for so long where it's up to the whole family, kind of what's happening and what we do and what we don't do. So being like in control of my own thing was pretty exciting. Um, and probably like the best, maybe like sort of decision I made career wise, like probably from a financial standpoint, was I do a lot of interactive toys. I do a lot of talking toys and stuff like that. And one in particular that I probably am not supposed to say that I'm the voice of, but one in particular, it's no secret if you, search or Google me or anything like that. And in one of those sessions, we had done a bunch of, like English recording for this toy. It has its own language, and then it has like records in English as well. It speaks English, but it also will learn the language from the child. So they wanted to localize that toy into 13 languages, and I said, I am the most qualified person on the planet to localize that toy. Having already recorded the thing. I had a linguistics degree at this point. I thought I was kind of, pretty hot stuff in terms of doing languages and mimicking and things like that. And they were like, okay, they want to do a Mandarin demo next week. And I was like, Mandarin? Like Chinese? They're like, yeah. And I was like, I don't speak Chinese. And they're like, well, we'll see how it goes. But that turned out to be a really lucrative thing that I ended up doing off and on for, 10, 15 years of my career so far. Well, 10 years of my career so far. No, it has been about 15. God, I'm old. Yeah, so that was probably the best decision I made in terms of like, promoting myself in order to stay involved in a project. But I don't know, every day it's kind of like it's always a little an opportunity to work on something cool, whether it's just an audition or whether it's something that, I'm asked to record in a session. It all feels really neat, and it feels like a bit of a sort of a gag that I still get to do it. I'm kind of like just waiting until they figure it out and stop calling, but so far that hasn't happened yet.
I see. So that's how you got into voice acting. Because
Yeah,
of all that experience that you've gone right there. You know,
just
you
life
see,
experience. I had really no like academic experience. I mean, I just thought voiceover made sense because I had taken linguistics classes, but they barely translate.
you know, I'm gonna be real honest, but like you, I too am taking classes as well. And I've
Yeah,
also gone into construction working with my
nice.
father for
That's
outdoor
who I worked
living and
for.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
same.
and I've often just do a lot of stuff. And right now I'm trying to get myself to college in order to have a good education to
Yeah,
eventually just be more independent for the sake of me accomplishing my goals of
absolutely.
becoming like you, a voice actor who is dedicated to work in many projects yet to come.
Totally. It's the best job in the world. If you can find work, and if you have kind of the temperament and the mindset, it can be really weird and it can be really kind of uncertain. Like, I don't know. This is the only thing I have this week that's on my calendar. I don't know if I'll have other jobs or something like that. Last week I had 3 or 4 jobs. Previous week, I don't know. I had maybe one or two. It's like you never really know what you're getting into or whether or not, what's going to come up through what you're going to sort of get offered or not. It's always just kind of up in the air. So you have to be comfortable with that. It can be really ambiguous, which can be really stressful.
Hmm. That's very nice to hear from you. And you know what? I'm glad you reminded me of my experiences I've been through. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you say that.
likewise.
Without further ado, I'd like to ask you this, but for every actor who ever faces rejections for auditions, have you ever faced any rejections? And how did you handle those setbacks? And what keeps you so motivated to overcome these obstacles and become who you are?
Well, some are harder than others. I'm not gonna lie. So some are like, the easy ones where you just audition something and you never hear about it again until maybe you see it on TV or you see the game in the game store or something like that, So it's like those kind of rejections are easy because it's just like, I just wasn't selected. So it wasn't rejection, it was just not selection, which is what they said. Something that was something they had written or painted on the wall at the voiceover school that I studied. Selection, not rejection. But you definitely come up to times where, you are hired to be the person and then you're there and you show up and then like, you do some of your sessions and everybody's positive about it, but then like they schedule sessions and then postpone them or schedule sessions and then cancel them. And then you're kind of like, well, I wonder what's happening. It's like they keep scheduling and releasing these sessions as it's like, am I still the person? I had one of those with a publisher that I had worked with very closely, where I was cast as one of the leads in one of their new games. And like we went through that process, me and another actor who's a very close friend of mine, and they were the lead opposite me. So both of us were leads, and we were kind of like, "Hey, have you heard anything? Because I keep getting scheduled and then released." And they're like, "No, I haven't heard anything either." Ultimately, we went to like a GDC party with GDC, which was happening last week. That's the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. We were invited to their party, and so it was like finally after a month of these scheduled things and then being released, I'm like, hey, so am I still in your game? And they're like, I don't know. And so it was like clear to me at that point that they had recast me or they were working on recasting, but like no one says anything to us. It's like, and I thought like these are people that I'm friends with, we've worked together so much. Someone would say something to me, but it was like no one does. No one says anything to you about, that thing that goes away. I've had other rejections where it's been like I've gone to the session and like done the voice that I did in the audition, and then like the client is all, no, that's wrong. It doesn't sound right. What did you do to your audition? How did you manipulate it, to make it sound better? And I'm like, I didn't, I mean, this is like I'm here at this session for you, and I realize it's, a different time zone or something like that, but and sometimes you just kind of know, okay, well, this is probably over, so I might as well just pack up my stuff and be ready to go. And then in some of those situations too, you'll have like the client, if it's like an independent producer, and they're like, oh, well, we can't pay you because the client didn't like you, and it's kind of like, well, I showed up for the job you booked me for, so you can figure that out with my agent, but it's like the agreement is that I'm here and that we do something. If like the client is, not into it, it's like that's not the commitment that we made. So it can be hard. And it's like you just kind of have to have a really thin skin. You never know, or a thick skin, not a thin skin, because you never really know what's going to come up, what's going to happen. They may just not like you, they may like somebody else, but it's like even if it's personal, it's like it doesn't impact me that much. I can't let that impact me because there's so much rejection in the job. There's a lot of selection too, but it's like most of the job is being rejected, in auditions, just auditioning for things and not getting them. I mean, it's just no one books everything they read. It's just not, it's not possible. It's always, there's so many different criteria that kind of go into, what the client actually needs or wants from an actor that it's just never really up to us. You just show up, do the best you can, and then hope they keep you. If they don't, they don't. But I can't beat myself up over it. Otherwise, that's the only thing I would do from like the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep.
I see. So that's what the things you've been going through. But from what you're saying so far, I'm just beginning to understand you quite well. But if I ever become a voice director or anything, I will never replace you. Because whatever the
Oh,
character you play as, I keep it. And
well, I
that's my way
appreciate
of
that.
thinking. After
I hope
all,
that
this
you
is something
direct
I've learned.
everything I ever work on from here on out.
And
Um,
that's my way of thinking. Just
yeah,
doing the right thing for the sake of it, not just for you, but for
yeah.
those I've come to understand very well. So
Yeah, well,
that's something I
sometimes
want to
it's up.
check.
Sometimes the clients just don't let us do it, though. Sometimes the client has, and they're like the one that's ultimately signing the checks. They've hired the production company, and the production company usually they'll hire a director who also is just like me, an independent contractor. And a lot of times it's another voice actor. And as much as those people would always like to support us, but it's not always up to them either. Sometimes the client just, the one who actually is the company that's making the game, they're the ones that'll say, nah. And then we're out of luck, unfortunately.
I see. Well, that's our good words I'm beginning to understand from you. But now, without further ado, these are the questions about the characters I'm about to ask of
Cool.
you. But do you remember the first ever character that you get to voice as? And what is it that experience that you had voicing that first ever audition? Like your first
Ooh.
character.
So my first like character audition or my first like booked character job?
First booked character job, like
So
in general.
yeah, so I think that was for a video game called Kuon, I think. It was like a Japanese like feudal Japan survival horror kind of game, I think. I never played it, so I don't know. And my character was just very much, kind of sort of my own voice, lower pitched. Which so it wasn't really even all that, didn't feel all that charactery to me. One of the most memorable ones for me was working for I don't think it was Telltale, but it was another developer like really early on that recorded a lot of their stuff at the same place as Telltale. I think the Autumn Moon, I think was the name of the publisher, and it was a game called I think Vampire Tales or something like that. And I was this Scottish priest and I love doing a Scottish accent. So it was just one of those where for me, I got to be that sort of, gruff Scottish character. And it was fantastic. It was like the best day I'd ever had at work ever. Cause it was just like, I just went and got to play in front of a microphone for like 2 hours doing a silly voice that I like would be doing in my car driving around anyway, just because I think it's funny the way it sounds. So that was really kind of special to get to do something that felt so much fun. They're not always fun, but for the most part, it's a fun job to get to kind of do, especially moments like that where you really get to be somebody weird. They're great.
I see. So that was your first ever audition. Just wanted to make sure so that just in case if I ever do a voice showcase for you, I want to do it in chronological order, just like how I
Oh,
did it for everyone else for over 4 years. From
wow, that's
Kevin
amazing.
from Kevin Conroy through Billy
Yes.
Kometz through Brad Venable to everyone.
Yeah.
It's all part of my YouTube channel, Seba's Voiceover World, from this logo there.
Nice.
Honestly, those videos that I did really gained like 1,000 views, all because of everyone supporting the things that I have done. Just as
Yeah.
I helped everyone out, they do the same for me in return. So
Yeah.
that's the
Chronological
honest
with me would
thing.
be tough just because I don't remember probably 80% of it.
That's why
Unfortunately.
that's why it takes a lot of research to
Oh my
understand it
gosh.
well. And that's
Yeah.
why you telling me this is just the correct way for me to understand clearly so that I can
Yeah.
get things into set. And I'm glad you said that to me. And I should thank you for that.
It'll be
Yeah.
a challenge for sure if you were to try. But I would love to see it because I'll be like, wow, I don't remember that at all. Or some of it I'll be, oh, right. That
And that
thing.
and that's the reason why I'm going to do it. I told this the
Fantastic.
same thing to some people, so yeah, that's something I want to say to you. So, yeah. About one of your characters here, but how does it feel about stepping into the role of the character Kenny
Mm.
from The Walking Dead? What do you love most about voicing that character?
The one of the things that was particularly cool about Kenny and just The Walking Dead in general was that we first and foremost it's when we get video game audition copy sides, they're often called. It'll usually be, you've got lines that are like, I'm moving, or I'm attacking, or I'm holding this position, or a battle cry, or I took damage, or something like that. It's usually very short little bits that are just designed to like fit into a circumstance as opposed to being part of a story or part of a narrative. Um, so when we got the audition packets for The Walking Dead, it was like each character had like multiple scenes, had a really long bio and description. There was a picture of them, which was unusual, especially for the time too. And just kind of going through the scene and like wrapping my head around who the character was, I tried to make it very close to my own voice, just a little bit southern, without making it too different or something like that. Maybe a little bit more gravelly or gritty as the character kind of aged and went through stuff. But I tried to just make it as human as possible and just try to put myself in that emotional state. From what I recall, all of the auditions for especially that first season, the first episode recording, it was like there were probably 2 or 3 months of casting where, we would read for the part, everybody would submit their auditions, and then like they'd all come back, or a bunch of them would come back and they'd be like, no, nobody's really getting this right. We need this one or this one. We want to redo this casting because, people just aren't getting it. They don't understand it. But Kenny never came back. It was like, I auditioned for Kenny. I mean, everybody who was reading for that probably auditioned for Kenny. And it was like, that character never came back. It was like, okay, well, so they probably have cast that character in some way. So who knows? And I was later told that they were kind of like, once that they had heard, my audition, it was like I was the guy and that was it. And they didn't need to keep sort of looking for people. So that felt really good. It felt great to at least kind of get to be out there, audition for something and feel like, I understood the assignment and they saw what I was trying to do. And I don't have to like, basically jump through the hoops of trying to get the character the way they want it to sound. I've had that experience, especially with Telltale, many times since, where you keep reading for the character because they haven't heard what they want quite yet. But yeah, Kenny was not one of those. And it felt pretty good to be a character like in that storyline. You never really know how long you're gonna last. It's The Walking Dead. So it's like everybody dies at some point just because it's the nature of the zombie apocalypse. So I remember when pretty much every session, I would come in and I'd be like, so how do I die? And they'd be like, you don't, but your wife and kid die or something. Sorry, spoilers. But so the whole time I figured like I'm doomed at some point. I'm just kind of waiting to actually, ultimately be killed and be out of this game. And then at the end of the first season, we had totally recorded that. It was pretty clear that Kenny had died and that like he died either saving Ben or he like falls in a hole and we recorded death audio. We recorded him getting beaten up and torn to pieces and death rattles and all that sort of stuff. And then I remember going to the rap party, which is kind of the only time we had a rap party for one of those games that I recall. Is we went to the rap party and the director, Sean Vanneman, came over to me and he was like, I erased all Kenny's death audio. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I erased all of it. And he's like, who knows? We do a second season. Who knows what's going to happen? And then, like, I remember the engineer, Jory, may he rest in peace, who I was talking to at the time, was like, nah, I still have it all. He still has it on a server someplace. But it was just cool to get to be in something like that. It was crazy that it did as well as it did and that people still remember me for it and still want me to sign posters and do cameos and things like that for
I
Kenny. It's wild
see.
to me. It's like 15 years later.
That's a super good thing to hear from you. Because
It's a nice ride.
all I know is that I got to know about The Walking Dead and that and you
Mm,
being part of it was a very unique choice. Plus, I
mm,
got to meet some of the people of that game who has
yeah.
actually been involved around it for almost a few years, including the legendary himself, Dave Fennoy.
Yeah, the
And
one and only
and I
Dave
got to meet
Fennoy.
other people there. So yeah, that's something I want to say to you right there. But
Yeah,
now,
it was super cool. It was an honor to get to work on it and to meet Dave. I did several sort of convention appearances, traveled with Dave for a while. He's a wonderful human being. Yeah, it was such an honor to get to work on that. You never expect that like a video game is going to be that kind of cult hit where people still love it and still replay it and, get so much
yes,
out of it. It's crazy.
it is indeed. But now, without further ado, about this one game I know of by the name of Diablo 4. What
Oh
stood out
yeah.
about you voicing that character, Vigo? Do you
Oh,
relate to him by any point?
I don't really relate to Vigo because Vigo had such a weird, tragic story. He was a guard, I think, who falls asleep and like Lilith gets past him and then, kills a bunch of people and does some awful ritual or he was gambling or something. I don't really remember, but the thing for me about working for Blizzard is that Blizzard is probably my favorite game developer of all time. Probably my favorite game of all time is Diablo 2. But I mean, I played Warcraft, the original Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, Diablo, Diablo 2, StarCraft, StarCraft 2, played World of Warcraft for way too long. Almost lost my marriage over it. And all of the Diablos, Diablo 3. And so when I got booked on Diablo 4, it was a huge honor for me just because I want, uh, to be in that was incredible. Although I don't love playing games that I work on. I am like a avid gamer. I play games all the time. But I don't love playing things that I'm in because I lose the suspension of disbelief. Once I hear myself in a game, it immediately takes me back to like that session. It takes me back to that audition where I'm like, oh, I wish they hadn't chosen that take. It breaks the fantasy for me. But getting to work for them and getting to work on that game was a huge honor for me just because, I love them. They're probably, my very, very favorite publisher ever. Or they
Well,
were, I don't know. They've had a troubled history the past 5 or so years, but
yeah, that is what everybody goes through right there. But
yeah.
all I know is that you being part of Diablo 4 was just a unique choice right there. Plus, your character get to interact with some people around here,
That's
such
right.
as Ray Chase through Lilia Borzins, through
Yeah.
everyone there, even
Yeah,
Gabe
there were
Fonda as well. And you
tons of
being
people
part
worked
of
on that.
it was
It,
just super awesome right
it was
there.
awesome for me too. I loved every minute of it. It was great.
Bet you do. Well. Now, about your character by the name of King Arthur Pendragon, or
Oh yeah.
aka the Black Knight in Sonic and the Black Knight, must have a unique presence there, right? So let me ask you one thing.
Mm.
What's the most coolest part about bringing that character to life?
So there were a few cool elements to that. There were a few uncool elements to that as well. The cool thing was that I got to work at this place called it was the Annex in Menlo Park, California. It was like an old recording studio where they did a bunch of like records in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So for me, getting to work there was really neat. That was like the first big video game voiceover job I had had was on Batman Begins for EA, and for some reason they didn't record there at their own studio on site, but they recorded there in Menlo Park at the Annex. So that in and of itself was cool just to kind of be back there. Kind of the uncool part was the company that was producing the audio for that. So the audio production company, the intermediary between me and Sega, which I don't believe they exist anymore, and that's okay. Not Sega, but this intermediary company. I remember when I got there to do that job, the director, who I'd already had kind of a weird relationship with anyway, says to me, "Okay, it's great that you're here. You were not my first choice." And I was like, okay, this is the first thing that you're saying to me to start a session is that I wasn't your first choice. And he was kind of just like that. So not super fun to work with that guy, but it definitely is really, really cool that people remember that game. To me, it was one of the ones that I just kind of did and forgot about. But I guess it made a real impression. People love Sonic. My kid explained that to me, my oldest son, who's now 20, but he was kind of like, "You were in this Sonic and the Black Knight game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so. I was the Black Knight, I think." And he's like, "That's so cool." He was a big Sonic fan. So that was surprising to me, that people knew about it and remembered it and that it is important to people. But yeah, a mixed experience. They're not always mixed like that, but that guy in particular was not fun to work with.
I see. So that's what you like about playing that character. Because all I know is that that game was part of my childhood, and
Yeah,
that I got to know about Sonic very well.
that's
And
awesome.
and you being part of it was just very awesome right there. Especially when you got to be the villain before,
Yeah.
without spoiling anything, a plot twist came along. After
Oh,
your death, it's
nice.
where one of the characters just ends up betraying, and just like that, boom,
Oh, wow.
become the final boss there.
I
So,
had no idea. I didn't
and
know.
that's
I never played it. That's
and
wild.
that's and that's something I want to tell you there. But I won't spoil it, but you'll soon see it eventually through YouTube by all means. Whenever you,
Probably.
yes, of course.
If I could track down a copy of that game, I'm sure I have a system I could play it on,
Or just
but I
search
would
up
have to
on
hook it up.
YouTube by all
Yeah, I
means.
could just watch it on YouTube. I'm an
Exactly.
old school gamer though, so for me it's like I would want to sit down and actually play it, just to get through it. I can't watch people play games. I'm too old for that. I'm like that's a new generation thing.
I see. I got two more questions I want to ask you due to the
Cool.
time limit there, and I want to make this quick. So, your character, Muaver, in Fire Emblem Engage must have been so cool,
Yeah.
right? What's the most thrilling part about voicing that character in the game?
So working on Fire Emblem was rad. I didn't really know what it was because they didn't tell us for a long time. Yeah, and I played Mavier was my character's name. And the thing that was the coolest for me was working with Patrick Seitz. He was the director on most of that. I think he's also in the game too. But so I got to work with him, which was really really cool because he's a great actor. I like admire him a lot, and he's really funny and fun. And he was directing me on most of those sessions, which was very cool. Another great part of that was pretty early on, as I recall, during COVID. So everything was kind of locked down. And so I was recording mostly from home, which was new and novel, but it was really, really cool to be able to record games from my house rather than having to fly or drive down to Los Angeles, which is usually, what you would have to do prior to COVID. It was neat. It was just a lot of fun. And like he's such kind of a not one note, but he's such a sort of a somber character that was really kind of relaxing because I can just kind of put on a little texture to my voice and like, everything he feels is just sort of, I don't know. And it was all really kind of subtle. And there's some really funny interactions between some of the characters too, just because if you have I don't know if you have them in a party. I don't actually know what the mechanics are for the game, but there were a lot of really funny sort of conversations that I would end up having with other characters. And Mavier just usually doesn't really understand, or he's too serious. He's like so serious, which was a lot of fun. It's fun to get to play somebody. I don't know. It's fun to get to play somebody not serious. It's fun to play somebody serious. It's fun to play villains. It's fun to play heroes. It's just kind of fun to play. So,
I see. So that's what you like about being in that game as that character. Because all I know is that I've gotten to know about Fire Emblem so well, got to meet some of the people there. And
yeah.
and the best part is Patrick Seitz bringing you in there was the unique choice right there. Especially since he is a good person in real life right there. When it
Yeah,
comes to
he's a lovely
directing
guy.
and acting on the other hand, is
Yeah.
what makes everyone just praise him like if he's some kind of god or something. So
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
that's something I want to tell you right there.
I could
But
only hear I could only hear his laugh to propose that to him. He would have like a huge hearty chuckle at that, but it would be imperious, no doubt. He has like a big, deep, manly voice. He's a great dude.
he is indeed. Now, without further ado, oh, this question I've been wanting to ask, just like I've asked this one to some people. So, your characters, Bolivar Trask and Araki in X-Men
Oh,
97 must be so cool, right? What was
that
so
was
awesome about being in that show as those two characters?
That was rad. So I really had no idea what they were doing. I knew that they were. in like the code name for that one, because pretty much everything that's recorded, especially for Disney, and like for Marvel, any of the really really big stuff. Certain people don't do this, but pretty much everything is code named, and the code name for that one was particularly ridiculous, which is Teen Spirit is the was the code word for that, which is kind of bizarre. But so it always kind of reminded me of Nirvana a little bit. But no, I just like that was something where I voice matched the original actor who played Boulevard Trask. I am not 100% sure which particular actor it was because there have been a few of them. So for me, it was just I just got that based on a match, so I could sound enough like that guy. But getting to work on what I had no idea that's what it was until we started working, and then they kind of explained to me what was happening. Because, in the 90s, when they were making that cartoon, I was working at a comic book store. And so for me, it was kind of wild this because I would watch the show a little bit, and a lot of people would come in and we'd talk about the cartoon and stuff. So to actually get to work on that as they sort of revitalized it was a huge surprise to me. I did not expect, to be working on something that massive. And then it was really successful. It was really good. People liked it a lot. It did well. That was all just, you never know how something's going to do. So when it does well, it's just kind of amazing. It was cool. And the cast was, is phenomenal. It was an honor to be a part of it. Well, just one of those kind of dumb luck things, I guess, where you match something and you get lucky.
I see. So that's what you love about being in that show. Because all I know is that X-Men 97, as you know, has came out last year and has been very unique in a way. Plus,
Yeah.
I met some people of that show before it came out. For example, J.P. Carleg, Azak
Yeah.
Robinson Smith, and even
Yeah.
Matthew Watterson. I got to meet them all before the show came out, and it's super
Nice.
unique how they were able to. And I was surprised to see that they're playing the characters.
Yeah.
And you being part of it was just something else there, especially when it comes to story arcs and the other hand, what other characters have gone through. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that the director Meredith Lane was able to bring
Yeah.
you in. Since
She, yeah,
since right now, oh,
thanks to her so much. She is such an awesome human being. And like she directed all the Invincible episodes as well. She's
yes,
fantastic. It's an honor to work with her anytime she calls. I'm like, you tell me when you need me and I will be there.
of course,
Yeah.
especially since season 2 is in production right now, along with the
Mm.
third, which has
Well,
already been recorded
I
already.
wouldn't know anything about that.
And that's why I'm letting you know this, that we one
If I
day,
did know anything about that, I couldn't say is probably
and
a better way to phrase that.
I know, just to let you know that, just that's all.
Yeah.
Well, Gavin, it's such an honor to finally have you right here, and that you are such a wonderful human being.
Thank you, Sibs. You are too.
Thank you. That's the power of autism, helping a lot of people. There's one more thing I'd like to ask you, and I
Oh,
want
yeah,
this
yeah.
to be a very quick one before the time limit. So,
Sure.
when people look back on your work, how do you want to be remembered as a voice actor?
Entertaining. I just want people to have enjoyed it and been, whether they hated it or loved it, I just want people to feel something. That's all. I mean, I've already sort of exceeded what, I would hope to do. As an actor, I'm pretty satisfied with, my career thus far, so I'm just grateful to get to do it at this point.
I see. So that's something I want to hear from you. To be honest, you deserve to be in more projects yet to come. And
Well,
that's
thank
the
you.
very reason why I have the desire of working with you. And not just to work with you, but to connect with you more and just do a lot of great stuff in life.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah. Well, Given, it's such an honor to have you on this show and that we'll be seeing each other through social media, my friend. And
Right
I
on.
hope you have a wonderful day.
Likewise. Thank you, Sibs.
You too. Want to keep up with my journey? Follow me on social media for more updates, behind the scenes moments, and all the fun along the way.